Jon Lovitz coming in the studio, getting situated. Good morning. How are you, my man?
Good, how are you? I totally remember you.
You do? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. I like you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a while since you were here. I think it's been almost maybe a year or two. It's been a little while since you've been here. How things been going?
Lately, it's been going great. You know, I have my comedy club. It's named after me at Universal City Walk, Jon Lovitz Comedy Club, and it's great. And we do podcasts, and we have a network, Jon Lovitz Comedy Network, that we started. So there's like, clips of comedians from the club, and there's podcasts on there. Like I do one called Lovitz or Leavitz, which is whenever I do stand up, I do press. A lot of radio press, and I really enjoy it. So then, when you go, hey, you could do your own show, I'm like, great, and it's fun. It's hard, though. It's a lot harder than I thought,
A lot of people, I used to work at a place called Comedy World, which is in Los Angeles years and years ago, and they tried to start a whole radio network that was comedians doing radio shows. And all of them commented to me. I was the only radio guy that worked there, and they all commented, they said, it's a lot harder than we thought it was going to be because you have 4 hours of material to fill every day, and not everything can be a home run. When you're doing 4 hours.
Yeah, and Tom Likas at all?
Sure, yeah.
And I was doing his show, and he was saying the same thing as you, which is, he said, I said, do you have any advice? He goes, yeah. He said, a lot of these comedians that come on, and then they'll do all these jokes for 20 minutes, and they have nothing left to say. He goes, it's just what you said. He goes, you got to spread it out.
Yeah.
And he goes, and don't be afraid. He goes, the other thing he said, they talk nonstop constantly. He goes, you can take pauses. You can, don't be afraid of, silence.
Well, I guess my advice to any comedian who wanted to start a radio show would be that you also don't have to be funny 100% of the time. You just have to be entertaining. There are things that you can talk about or talk with people about that aren't maybe necessarily funny, but as long as it's entertaining and compelling, it will work.
Well, you have to have the gift of gab, and also a lot of comedians, they're really only interested in them. They're narcissistic, so they're not interested in what the other person thinks or has to say. They're just thinking about a joke.
Isn't everyone in entertainment a bit narcissistic, though?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What? I'm sorry. I was looking at myself in the mirror. What was the question?
This comedy club, that's on Universal City Walk. Is that the one in Florida or the one down in
Los Angeles?
Okay, all right. Because I've been to the one in Florida, I guess. Isn't that Universal Studios?
Yeah, in Orlando.
Yeah. Well, I've been to that one, but I haven't been to the one in Los Angeles. There's a lot of controversy with this comedy club that I'm reading since the last time you were here. There's lawsuits that have flown over this thing.
Yes.
What can you talk about?
I don't talk. I don't believe in talking about business in public. It would be as if you told me. I said, well, what's your deal here at this station? And you told me, and then I went on and said, guess what his deal is? And then I repeated it, and you say, hey.
Yeah.
Are you a moron?
Well, are you able to I did read that.
The point is I have a new partner, and the club is doing very well. It looks fantastic. It's being run great. We have all these new shows. We have... We just started on Monday, and besides just comedy, we have a lot of music shows. We have a live karaoke band. We have on Wednesdays we have a music show where it's with comedians, but it's like got all the top musicians in town from all these bands, and they play blues or whatever they want to play, and they just jump up on stage and join in.
Is it hard to run a business? You're an entertainer. A lot of entertainers, I'll see, they'll get into businesses, whether it be a restaurant or a club or something like that. And it's a lot harder than they anticipated.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's what I've learned. I don't know how to run it. That's why I have a partner, And it's a whole other skill set that I think takes, years to learn, and I respect it. And it's very, very difficult. Running a comedy club, anyone will tell you, is one of the hardest things to do because we have food, too. So you're running a restaurant plus shows, and you have to book shows, and we're open. We have to be open 7 nights a week, so you have to constantly book shows.
Mm-hmm. Is there that much
endless
talent?
Work.
Is there enough talent for these comedy clubs, like for yours, to be open 7 days a week. Is there enough talent out there?
Yeah, there is, but for our club anyway, there's a lot of other great comedy clubs in Los Angeles already that have been there for years. So for us, we can't, and because we're in the Valley, we can't survive on comedy shows alone. So we're also doing music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's this new band, and they're called Super Naked. They just started, and they're a bunch of they're studio musicians, and there was this producer, and he's the lead singer and guitar player, and Lee, and he said, he said to them, we're recording all these other songs. He goes, I wrote these really silly songs, but the music's good. Do you want to record them? And they all said yes. So they started playing at my club, and God, they're so great. I think they're going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because you have these, it's like Tenacious D and Jack Black times 10, because it's a full band, and they're studio musicians. They're all like, great drummers and great guitar players. They're all great. But they're playing and the tunes are great, but the songs, are just ridiculous.
So you'll book those kinds of acts. You'll book comedians. You book whatever you can to get people to come into this place 7 days a week.
We're starting on Saturdays at 3:00. They have all these YouTube stars, and they'll have 15 million followers. Well, that's bigger than a lot of television shows.
It is, yeah.
Like more than 3 times, because everything's changed in TV. So they're going to start coming to our club and doing shows on the stage. And, a lot of these guys, they do stuff from their bedroom. And it's like saying to them, come on, you got to get out of your bedroom. You could make even more money. And, I don't think they realize it because they were never performers, a lot of them. They just started doing funny stuff in their bedroom, and all of a sudden they're huge.
Well, were you a trained performer, or did you sort of stumble into
No, I'm totally
acting?
trained. I didn't stumble into it. I did plays in high school, and then I went to UC Irvine, and I decided to be a drama major and keep it going. So I studied, I did 21 plays and studied it for 4 years, and then I took a year and a half like acting just for in front of the camera, and then I was in New York, and then I was in the Groundlings for 3 years and learned improv and writing sketches and everything. So no, I'm totally trained. I went for this. It wasn't like an act. I didn't just fall into it.
I might have even told you last time you were here. Kevin Pollak was here, and he told me that that acting is not that difficult. And I think a lot of people believe that, but to me, I think it's a lot more difficult than people give it credit for.
Well, Kevin's a good friend of mine, and for him, it's not harder. It's not as hard now because he's been doing it since he's 10.
So he kind of came naturally. It came
natural. But when you do something that long,
right.
What you learn about acting is creating the character. Is hard. There's a lot to it. You can make it as a character have as much depth as you want to. It's like saying, I disagree with him because it's like saying radio isn't hard. You go, well, okay, what do you mean? What level of radio? Like, to be a great actor, these guys work their butt off on their parts, the great actors. They don't just like kind of look at the script once and do it. I mean, Dana Carvey, who's also, started doing stand-up with Kevin Pollak, and Dana did a movie once with Anthony Hopkins and John Cusack and all these people. And he said Anthony Hopkins said he reads the script like 150 times. Like 150 times. But, I mean, they work their butt off on it. And they just think about it and think about it. And to be a great actor, to do a part great, it's a tremendous amount of work. It's like, look at Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, the guy wins an Oscar pretty much every time. But he's working on the part for 2 years. Nobody works on a part for 2 years before they start shooting.
Yeah. Do you?
And even if they did, would they be as good as him? I doubt it. The guy's amazing, but he puts a tremendous amount of time into it. To bring it to that level.
Do you prefer acting in television and movies, or doing stuff like you're doing at Hilarities, which is stand-up in front of a live audience? I mean, I guess acting probably in television and movies pays better, I suppose. But
well, for me, I mean, no, not necessarily, but for me, I was trained, be an actor, but I like making people laugh. That's what I like doing. And so to hear them laughing back is very satisfying, and it's fun. And then you play off the audience. But they're very different. I did a movie called Casino Jack, and I was opposite Kevin Spacey, most of my scenes, and Barry Pepper, and they're great actors. So it was fun working with them, of course.
That was a Jack Abramoff story. Is that Casino Jack? Yeah,
yes.
Okay. I didn't see the whole thing. I was on, and I watched like 3/4 of it. It came out a couple of years ago.
No, it's really good. And George Hickenlooper directed it, and he was such a great guy. And then, we screened the movie in Austin, and then 2 days later he died, and we were all devastated. And it was the next week was the premiere. And
what did he die
awful.
from? Like a heart attack or something
I think
sudden?
So. Yeah, he was in Denver because his cousin John Hickenlooper is the mayor of Denver, and he's running for governor. He goes, and I was in Austin, and I said, well, I'll see you on the plane tomorrow. And he goes, no, I'm going to Denver. My cousin, I think he's going to win, which he did. He's now the governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper, and that was George's cousin. But the thing about that movie was George was great to work with, and Kevin was, fantastic. And I've known Kevin for, 25 years or 30 years, but I'd never worked with him. And when he's so great, it's like playing tennis with someone that's great. They feed you the ball perfect so you can whack it. And that's what it's like with Kevin. And George would say, "Oh, you're so great in the movie." I'm like, "Well, you left my scenes in, and that's the truth. I had 9 scenes, and he left them all in, so I got to create the full character.
How do you get a role like that? Do you have to? Does someone just say he'd be good for it? Do you have to go in and audition, or how does it work?
On that, well, yeah, they offer you the part,
Mm.
They actually were going to go with someone else, and there was a scheduling thing, and then Kevin Spacey said, "Let's just get Jon Lovitz." And Kevin wanted me, and it was kind of a dramatic. It was funny and dramatic, and I thought, was Kevin going to be okay with this? And George said, "Hey, he's the one that suggested you. He wants you." I go, "He does?" I go, "Oh, great."
Now, when you go and you have obviously you have an agent that goes in and handles that kind of stuff for you or whatever, negotiates a deal, but like you obviously want to do a role like that. I'm assuming, right? Because it expands things out. It's not a typical comedy. Role, right? And
well, I can tell you went through my head. I mean, I read the script, and I go, I liked it, but I go, a lot of it was kind of expository, so they had to cut some of that out. I thought, which was good, but it was pretty good, and the part was different. It was but I didn't know who the director was. So I go, well, and the director makes the movie. It's like the director. They put the story together. They do the editing. They do everything.
So you're putting basically the fate of the movie in the hands of the director.
Yeah, he's the one that's making it. So, and then I thought, you know what? I don't know the guy. I talked to him. He seems very nice, and if Kevin Spacey's smart, so if he's good enough for Kevin Spacey, he's good enough for me. I go, I don't have to know. And it was. I'm thrilled that I did it, and the cast was I thought everybody did a great job in that movie, and we all did, and everybody it was a real ensemble. We all felt proud of it, and all got along great. And it's rare that happens, and you make friends. Some movies you make friends, and I still have friends from that movie.
You grew up I think, in Southern California, right? If I remember from the last show.
Yes, you remember correctly.
Your dad, I think, was, I want to say, a dentist or a doctor.
A doctor.
A doctor. Michael Jackson's doctor or something.
Yes.
It had something to do with the Jackson family, I remember. You met him when
he
a
had
little
a huge
kid.
practice. He was in the Valley. Yeah, and they lived right around the corner from his office.
I remember that I think you met him riding your bike or something, didn't you? You met Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and the last... I met him over the years, and the last time I saw him, he was a very generous guy. That's the thing about him. He's so generous. I don't think people could accept the fact that someone could be that nice, but he was that nice and that generous. And I ran into him, and he looked at me. It was the first time he really looked at me. He went, and his eyes got big and his jaw dropped. He goes, I know you. And I go, well, yes, I've met you a lot. He goes, no, but I know you. I go, well... I've met you over the years a lot because I lived in Encino. I go, remember Dr. Lovitz? He goes, yeah. I go, that's my dad. Maybe he thought, because I look more like my dad now. He said, and then I go, well, first time I met you, I was 12, and I go, you were 11, I think. I go, remember that 10-speed bike you had that was like rainbow colored when you were 11? He goes, yeah. I go, well, I was riding up the street with my friend, and you almost ran into us, and we stopped and talked to you. I met you then. He goes, I remember that. I go, you remember that? He goes, yeah. I go, you really remember that? He goes, yes. I go, oh, well, that was me. And then I met you, and I explained. But I thanked him. I said, I got to thank you because twice, right, I got to send up an orphanage of kids, like 110 people to Neverland, and another time on 2 days' notice, these kids that were all like 12 kids, and a friend said, hey, they're having a party for these kids. They're all dying of cancer, and this actor from a police academy, one of the main guys, is involved with this organization. He throws them, a barbecue and stuff. And so my friend called, hey, maybe those kids could go to Neverland. So I called, and they go, yeah, absolutely. And 2 days later, they were up there. And all you had to do is provide transportation and security, and then you bring them up. They'd go up there, and they'd get a, ride on the train, which looked like Disneyland, and then there are all these animals, the zoo and the amusement park, and then they get a picnic dinner. I mean, a big picnic lunch, and then they have movies and all the candy and ice cream they want, and watching, and in this theater he had, there's like these glass booths in the back with hospital beds because there were sick kids, that were in the hospital. So he made these booths so that these kids could come there. I mean, the guy was just extraordinarily generous, to the point where, and money, he went broke. And anybody, where I grew up, anybody that knew him, and a lot of people knew him, their family, because their family lived in the community. So you'd see him at school, you'd see him here. And I have like a tennis teacher, and he goes, oh, we lived right next door to the Jacksons when they first moved to Los Angeles in Hollywood. He goes, we're friends with him. He goes, yeah, Michael's, used to come to my house and say to my mom, can I clean, He was a kid. So, and he goes, yeah, he calls my mom 3 times a week, And
what do you think?
I mean, and one of my best friends was, worked for him and just said he's the nicest guy ever. I mean, he was just.
What do you think, like, when they do this Grammy thing or whatever? Was it at the Grammys where they have that hologram of Michael Jackson? It's kind of, I don't know if you saw that. That's kind of weird. It's kind of creepy, isn't it?
I heard about it. Yeah, I guess it's like, I think it's, the technology's amazing, and it's weird. I mean, they're going to do that with some other performers I know that have, one of them anyway, that
like if
has passed away. And
like, if you croak, do you want there to be a Jon Lovitz, like, in your theater that you have there, the Universal City Walk? Do you want like a hologram of Jon Lovitz to come out and perform? I mean, that's.
Well, you want to know something? It's fun. You remind me. I just did that. With the same people that did that Michael Jackson hologram. I just did. They were shooting something in my club, and I go, we'll make a hologram of me. And it'll look like you're on the stage introducing, you're not there, and I just did it.
Really?
Yeah.
And
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure if I see it, I'll be like, oh my God, it's so weird.
Gonna freak you out, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. If it really looks like I'm standing there and I'm not.
So what do you do so you go out, you're on the road, you're doing stand-up comedy on the weekends, or most weekends probably.
Wait, are you like obsessed with me? All these questions about me.
Well, you're here, you're my guest, I'm just learning about you.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
Tell me what a usual week in the life of Jon Lovitz is. Is it involved in business? Do you lounge around the pool there that you have?
No, when I do stand-up, I get in, like I got in last night, and then I'll do press today in the morning, and then I'll maybe get something to eat and go back to sleep again, and then get ready and do my show tonight, then go to sleep, then sleep in tomorrow, get up, work out, get something to eat, go back to sleep. But I
Are
need
you
to
a
sleep
single guy?
lot.
You have any family or anything, or?
Yeah, I'm single, but I have family, and I have my dog.
Yeah, so you don't mind being on the road for days?
Well, I mean, sometimes it depends what city you're in. Some cities are really fun. Some cities are. I don't particularly want to go back because it is lonely and there's nothing to do and you're just waiting all day.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you look at it as a vacation, you can really use it just to like rest and relax and read a lot and catch up on your sleep and so I enjoy it. It's fun. I started doing stand-up. I didn't really think about all the travel and all the cities I would see and the people I would meet, and it makes for an interesting life. Like I'm here talking to you again.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me.
So you got into the Groundlings, which was like an improv group. You honed your skill. How did you get on Saturday Night Live? You auditioned for that, or someone recommended
Well,
you for this?
I was in the Groundlings. Basically, what happened? It happened very quick in January of '85. I got into the company of September of '84. Then January of '85, we did a new show, got great reviews, and Jim McCauley, who booked all the comedians on the Tonight Show, decided to book the Groundlings on the Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm.
3 sketches. I was in 2 of them, and I remember when they told me, I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I did it, and then that got me an agent, and then he started sending me on auditions, and I got a movie and a TV show in the same day. I got everything I auditioned for because I was like, I got to work, and I went all out and got everything. And at the same time, he submitted me for Saturday Night Live. He goes, Lorne Michaels, they're looking for new people on SNL. And I said, well, yeah. He goes, I'm going to, submit your tape. I go, oh, you're ridiculous. He goes, no, really. And he kept talking about Saturday Night Live. I said, hey, Mike, I have a better idea. Why don't I land on Pluto? He goes, I'm serious. I go, and I finally said to him, I go, will you just shut up about that? I go, you're ridiculous. I go, I'm not going to. That's how I felt about it. It was another world. I'm like, please. Never entered my mind that I'd be on that show. And but I got this movie with Charles Grodin, and he ended up recommending me to Lorne Michaels on his own because we were shooting this movie on Catalina, and I was supposed to meet Lorne on a Wednesday. And then he wanted to put me in the movie more, so he called Lorne and said, could you take a good hard look at this kid? He's really great, and could you meet with him on Friday? I didn't even know him, I mean, it was so nice of him to do that. And Lorraine Newman had been in the original cast. She saw me in a show at the Groundlings the summer before. She befriended me. She recommended me to Lorne. I didn't ask them to. They just did it.
So they,
and Jim McCauley recommended me to this guy casting Saturday Night Live, and I was like, I was flabbergasted by it, and then I met Al Franken and Tom Davis, and they in their office, and I was talking to them, and I could say they weren't impressed. I go, do you want to see some of my characters? They said, okay. And I started doing them, and they were laughing. And then they came to the Groundlings to see me do a show. And I was doing Master Thespian, and the whole audience, nobody was laughing, but I could hear Al laughing. And I remember in my mind, and I told Al this, I thought, thank God that guy from Saturday Night Live is laughing. And every time I tell Al that, he starts laughing. He was the only one laughing at it.
Do you see
But I go, well, he's the one that counts.
Do you look at Al Franken now, and is he a senator now, or is it a congressman, or whatever?
No, he's a senator.
I mean, that's big time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
blow your mind that Al Franken is a senator.
It totally blows my mind. And
we could have President Jon Lovitz, perhaps.
Well, I wouldn't. You don't want that. But I would be very good at making speeches. But any actor would be, But I would be great at that and getting the country all inspired and everything.
The Saturday Night Live experience, is it all that it's cracked up to be? I mean, is it?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? I think people have one idea in their mind what it is. I know what they have because they're sitting at home. I did after it was a lot of stress, 80 hours a week, a lot of writing, fighting to get on the show, a lot of fun, but a lot of competition when I was on it. And the year I was off, and Dana and we were obsessed with the show. And I called him after I was off. I said, Dana, remember all that stuff we would talk about? Everything had to get on. What do we have to do? All the stuff that just made you like neurotic and crazy. I said, I'm sitting here watching the show. I go, you don't see any of that. None of it. You just sit at home. Like I'm watching the show, just looks like everybody's having fun, and this is the show they presented this week. And I'm never thinking, why is he in this show a lot, and why isn't she, and none of it, nothing.
So there's a lot of competition.
I said it was all a giant waste of time, us obsessing like that. I go, you don't see any of it.
So it's a lot of competition between the people that are on the show.
Well,
in order
when I
to
was
get
on,
into
oh my
skits.
God, yes, because you'd write 30 to 40 sketches, and then they'd produce 14 for dress rehearsal, and then they would cut 6, which is almost that's like an hour of show. So it almost cut a whole show.
And
so
what
out of
if
14,
they
8 got on air. So out of 30 to 40 sketches, 8 will make it on air.
And if they cut your stuff at the last minute, you feel personally disappointed, obviously, but you take it as...
But I have to admit that most of my stuff got on. I rarely got cut.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like if you said, I only remember one sketch that was getting cut that I kept trying to get on, called "Oh My God," and I don't know why Lorne wouldn't put it on. I really don't know. because it was very funny.
How many years were you on Saturday Night Live?
Excuse me, 5.
5 years. Why did you leave the show?
Well, I was supposed to do a movie of my liar character after my first year in the show, and the whole thing fell through, and I was really very disappointed by that. And then 5
now,
years
was Lorne
later,
Michaels supposed to produce that because he would probably own the
Yes.
character or whatever?
yeah, it was
because
supposed
it's
to
Saturday
happen,
Night Live.
and it didn't.
So did you have a little bit of a you sort of held that against him then because you're like, hey,
Yes.
how come you didn't make this movie that you were supposed to make?
Yeah, and he said they didn't want to make it. But yeah, at the time, yes, I did. At the time, I did. So then, 5 years later, I got offered this movie. I was supposed to do, after my 5th year that summer, I was supposed to do 2 movies, A League of Their Own, and this movie, Mom and Dad Save the World, and then I'd be back on the show. So I thought, perfect. Because the goal, by then you start getting known, and you go, now I'm going to do this. You get all these opportunities. So I thought this would be great if I could have movies out while I'm on the show. It's like the double whammy. It'll be great, and it'll blow me up. And anyway, League of Their Own didn't happen that summer. I made it 2 summers later. And then Mom and Dad Save the World. They said, well, we can't. You'd have to miss like the first 2 shows. And then Lauren had a policy, you can't miss shows. And he wouldn't let me. And I was mad. I went, screw it, I'm leaving. Because I thought this is another opportunity for me to star in a movie. And the truth was the script was like, it was so funny and so clever. I thought they wrote the part for me. I thought, I can kill in this part. This is like perfect for me. And it was my kind of humor, it was silly and smart. But they ended up, it's movies. You don't think, and in retrospect, I should have stayed. It was like, it came out for a week and then went to video, and it was just, they cut out the clever stuff, so it kind of became silly. And
so you regret
dumb.
leaving Saturday Night Live after 5 years?
Yeah, I do. I mean, but the thing is, I was there. I'd be in New York a lot, and every time I was, they go, "Hey, you want to come on the show and do a sketch? You want to come on?" And they'd have me on all the time. And then the last year that would have been my 6th season. My manager goes, "Oh, John, Lauren said to say, they love you. It's just a joke." I go, "What is?" He goes, "I don't know. That's what he said to tell you." So I'm watching the show, and he's talking to Dennis Miller. He goes, "So you're leaving the show, huh?" He goes, "Yeah, that's really? You're really going to leave?" Yeah. He goes, and then Lauren goes, "You're not going to keep coming back like Lovitz, are you? It's pathetic."
Oh no!
And I'm sitting home watching this. And I was like. And, the truth is...
And that hurt you, of course.
Well, yeah, because I knew the audience, they didn't laugh. Because I go, why are you going after me? And it pissed me off because I kept coming back. They kept calling me to come back. I wasn't like hanging around and going, can I be on the show? Can I be in the show? I wasn't even there. Al Franken would go, hey, we have a sketch. Can you do it? Okay. And then at one point, Lauren said, you could have stayed and missed shows. I go, Lauren, I go, are you joking? I said I'd make them up at the end. I would have signed for another 5 years because by that time I had it down. And anyway, talking about it, it just brings me right back to that time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to do the show. You do this and this. But the truth is, even if they said you could be on it now, which they wouldn't, I'm a lot older, and I don't know if I could do it physically. It's really tough.
It's a demanding job.
Well, I got to leave I'd be leaving early. I'd write one sketch and leave early, and I'd be leaving. I got to sleep. I can't stay up. I mean, talk about demanding. Like Tuesday, they wouldn't start writing till 10. My first year, I'd be there till 7 in the morning. So Wednesday morning till 7 in the morning. And normally in the Groundlings, it takes like 2 weeks to write a sketch. I was writing 3 a night, which is crazy. And then you'd have one time in there on Wednesday. You'd read through 3 to 5, so I'd go home, go to sleep, get there. And I was up till like 3:30 in the morning. Then the next day, Thursday, I was up till 2:30 in the morning. And then I almost fell asleep on air. I did. One show I could show. I literally almost fell asleep. I couldn't keep my eyes open. Because I didn't drink coffee, and they didn't have Red Bull or 5 Hour Energy. I wish they did. You'd be like, you were always on fire. I go,
Have you ever, last time you were here...
But let me just say something.
Yes.
I'm very, Lauren and I get along great. And, play tennis together, and, we...
So we're
Worked
not
it
going to
out.
see it on TMZ.com that Jon Lovitz hates Lorne Michaels. I know you hate TMZ.com, if I remember
No,
correctly.
Lauren, I'm very grateful. He gave me, and I say to him, he gave me the life I always dreamed of. And yeah, we had our, differences for a long time, but I don't know. It's
Water
been a
under
long
the bridge.
years ago. Yeah, everything's fine.
What
And
about
last time I ran into him? We hugged each other high, and I'm very grateful. The truth is, I was hurt because, we were all very, very grateful to him because, look what he did. He put us on that show, and it's like giving you, the break of your life and giving me a career that I dreamed of. I said, I said to him, I go, thank you for giving me the life I dreamed of. You made my dream come true.
What about Andy Dick? Did you ever patch things up with him? Is that water under the bridge?
Yeah, I saw him, and yeah.
So you patched it all up.
Yeah.
You hugged it out, or what did you do?
No, but he basically said he was sorry. And
Is he clean and sober now? Is he kind of like a normal dude? Because he was out there and whacked out for a while.
I don't know. Andy's, I don't know. Andy's, he's a complicated guy, But when he's sober, let's just say he's very nice and,
Mm-hmm.
But then he has a problem, and it's not a secret, with drinking and stuff and drugs, and then that happens, and
But
he does stuff he shouldn't do.
You've patched it up though, so you guys had a.
Yeah, I don't hang out with him, but yeah, I finally ran into him. He's like, I like you, John. I don't want you to be mad at me. I'm not mad at you. I'm like, all right,
You met.
It's hard when someone does it. It's hard for me to stay mad, but I was very angry with him. Well, what he said was horrible.
What did he? I don't even remember what the feud was about. I remember the last time you were here.
He goes, I put the Phil Hartman hex on you. You're the next one to die.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Which is not a good thing to say to someone about their best friend who was murdered.
And in fact,
to say the least.
Of course not.
I think anyone would have just gone. And then I blacked out, Your Honor. And the next thing I know, he was going to pull the blood in the ground. You know what I mean? It's like, it feels like my brother. And so someone said that to me. You just.
And for people who don't remember, Phil
the
Hartman
most horrible
was
thing you could say to somebody like that.
Phil Hartman was murdered by his own wife. For people who don't remember that, it's been quite some time now, if you can believe it. I don't know when that was, how long that's been, but that was
1998.
1998.
But I don't want to talk about it. Phil's a great guy, but I don't want to talk about that.
Is it still tough to talk about to this day?
Yeah, of course.
And he was your best friend. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. So he was your best friend.
Yeah, he was like my older brother, and he was the best. He was just the nicest guy in the world, and just so talented and very, very humble about it. And he wasn't like humble about it. He just was like, I don't know, because he could just do it. And everybody loved him. You didn't talk about anybody that worked with him or this. They didn't like him. They loved him,
And you met him, what, when you were at the Groundlings? That's what you met?
Yeah, I was
when
at
you
the
met him?
Groundlings. I got to understudy a part in a play that he was the star of. And I said, well, why me? And they goes, well, it was Phil's idea. Well, at the time in the Groundlings, Phil was like the king of the Groundlings. In all of our minds, he was like the star. He was a big star, He had a new car. He had a real job. He had money. He had a house. We were all dead broke. And he was extremely talented. He was just off the hook talented. And the best improviser, if you saw him, anyone saw him and goes, oh, they're great at improvisation. I go, oh, yeah. Not like Phil. And then I remember he was doing this character called Chick Hazard, which is like a 1940s character. And so he's walking down the hallway. And the Groundlings is a small theater, it's like 99 seats. But this hallway with all these lockers. They own the building,
Mm-hmm.
And you put all your costumes in these like wooden lockers. And he was walking down the hall. I'd never met him. And I said, I go, hey, Phil, I'm Jon Lovitz. He goes, yeah, I know who you are. I go, oh, well, thank you for, recommending me for the show. He goes, oh, yeah, you'll be great. I go, and I said, you know who I am? He said, oh, yeah, I've seen your work. I think you're, he goes, yeah, you'll be fantastic. I go, oh, you know who I am? He goes, oh, yeah, I've seen your work. I think you're great, or whatever. You'll be fantastic. I go, oh, well, thanks, and he walked on. And I remember in my head thinking, oh, my God, Phil Hartman spoke to me. Like, that's how big he was. He was like a legend, but he was there. And so I was so grateful to him and looked up to him so much. That was like a puppy dog. He was 9 years older than me. And I'm like, Phil, let me see your house, Phil. And I just was like, his biggest champion. And I go, Phil. And then they asked us to recommend people for SNL. And I recommended my second year, and I recommended 4 people from the Groundlings, and Phil was one of them. And I said, and I said, was he good? I said, listen, you guys see this guy, Phil Hartman. I said to Lauren, do you think I'm good? I go, you should see him. He's a genius. If you like me, where do you see him? He's a genius, which, and I go, that's right. No, I said, if you like me, I go, where do you see him? I go, he's way better than me. He's a genius, And then he got the show, and then he turned it down. And then he changed his mind and said yes. So I said, well, Phil, why'd you change your mind? Was it because of me? Because I said, you should really do it and you're great. And I thought that. And he said, no. I'm like, oh. I said, I wanted the credit. But he goes, no. I said, what happened? He goes, well, Joel Silver called me. And Joel produced Lethal Weapon. He's a big producer. Yep. We'd done a movie. I introduced him to Joel when I was doing Jumbo Jack Flash that Penny Marshall asked me to do. And I met her because she was hanging out at Saturday Night Live my first year, and she befriended me and was great to me. So that's how we met Joel. And he goes, no, Joel called me and said, are you crazy? You got to do this, And so he did it, And but the weird thing is, once he was on SNL, he didn't do Chick Hazard. He did it maybe once. Mm-hmm. He was like a leading man. And I kept saying, Phil, why aren't you writing your characters and doing them? And I think he didn't want to do it on the show. He wanted to save it for other stuff,
Did you also, at the Groundlings, I think you worked with Paul Rubens, right?
No, Paul was before me. But
okay.
when I was, it's kind of a funny story, but I grew up with, Lisa Kudrow on Friends.
Yep.
I grew up with her family. Like, her brother's my best friend, David, since we're 11. So she has another sister, older sister, Helene. So when I was, 20, Helene's a couple years older. Helene said, oh, John, you want to be an actor? I work for this manager, Dave Stewart. So I went to him, and he said, there's comedy going on. He goes, there's a show there's a place called the Groundlings, which I had heard of through my dad. He goes, you should go down there. There's this guy named Paul Rubens. He does this character, Pee Wee Herman, at a midnight show. You should go see that. This is what's happened, the hottest thing in town now. So I went, and it was just crazy funny, this Pee Wee. It was just the funniest thing you'd ever seen. And the one thing I remember was, like, he was dancing, and then he gave himself a headache. And I was just crying, laughing. He was so funny, and he kept looking at the audience doing double takes, and it was just hilarious. And anyway, when I got to Saturday Night Live, my first year, he hosted the show, and he came there with 2 writers, and one of them was Phil. And we did a liar sketch that Whitney Brown and I wrote with Paul as Pee Wee, and it was really fun. But I remember when I got Saturday Night Live, I'd met Paul. I met him. He goes, hi. I go, oh, hey, how are you doing? He goes, boy, I've never seen it happen this fast to anyone at the Groundlings. Meaning, I just got in the company in September, and then, a year later, I'm on SNL.
Right.
Because I've never seen it happen that fast.
One last thing before Jon Lovitz is at Hilarities. Another question? He'll be at Hilarities tonight at 8, 7:30 and 10 tomorrow night, 7 and 9:30 tomorrow night. We're talking about patching things up. So you patch things up with Andy Dick, patch things up with Lauren Michaels. What about Kevin Smith? Kevin Smith was hosting his podcast at your theater.
I don't even want to. No, and I'll never. I have nothing to say about him.
You haven't patched it up with him.
No, and I never will. And he did a whole podcast about it, and he left out a lot of stuff, and it was a bunch of crap and lies. And
I didn't listen to the podcast. Basically, all I know is that he says that he had a deal with you at your comedy club that he was supposed to get a certain percentage of the door. At least that's what I read in my prep.
Yeah, he was getting it, and then a very excellent deal. And then he wanted all of it, 100%, more over 100%.
How do you get more than 100% of the door? That's like saying I want 110% of the door?
That's basically what he wanted. And I just said no, and the club's in trouble, and I can't do this. And I had to pay them for like 5 shows out of my own pocket. And he just, anyway, he'll listen, he'll take this interview and then he'll play it as his next podcast. I don't want to start up with him again. All I can tell you is that they're not telling the truth, the whole truth, and they tried to gouge me, and I wouldn't let them, and they were getting way less over the hill than they wanted from me. And I said, oh, so I should pay them everything, and they, and then they're charging other clubs half that. And he can say that's not true, but I know for a fact it is because I just know. And look, you look at, you go, oh, you had a problem with Lauren. It was unfortunate, it was my boss, and you have trouble with your boss sometimes, but we're fine. But, Andy Dick, he has trouble with everybody.
Right.
Kevin Smith, he gets in fights with everybody. Southwest, Adam Carolla, it's on and on and on. You know what I mean? You got to look at that. It's unfortunate, but that's what happened, and it's not worth mentioning. The guy, totally ripped me and lied and left stuff out, and he says, he's emailing me, and then he's talking about all the emails I sent. You know what I mean? You just don't do that. You don't talk about business in public. You just don't. If you have a deal here and it doesn't work out and you go to another station, what you say is, I had a good time here. My contract was up, and I decided I got at a new station, I decided to move and got a great deal. Whatever, and so I've left, and that's what you do, but he didn't say the whole thing, and I'm not going to give him ammunition because he'll just lie again.
You take these things personally sometimes. I remember
he attacked me personally.
Yeah.
And
I remember the last time you were here, I think the guy from TMZ was really under your skin at the time. The guy who runs TMZ.
Well, the guy, they don't know me. He attacked me personally and said I'm racist and all this stuff. And I think TMZ is, I think they're the worst. I think that they do it over and over. They don't care. They get these private, whether the people are wrong or not, they get these private recordings and then put them on, knowing that it'll ruin the person's life, ruin their career. And it could be a moment where, and if you listen to these things, it's a moment where someone's lost their temper.
Yeah. Well, like Jonah Hill recently was getting hounded by the paparazzi, and he said, "Suck my D, you fag," or whatever. Which
the guy was just horrific. Yeah,
you shouldn't say. I mean, I think Jonah Hill has come out and said, but you lose your temper,
but
right?
you lose. Yeah, someone's following you all day and insulting you all day and hurling stuff, and you're. It's not like you're deaf. You're a person, and they keep doing it and doing it. And these teams, they do it to get a reaction out of you, and they'll just keep doing it to finally you snap.
Could you imagine if you did that to a plumber? If you went around following a plumber all day saying, hey, your wife is fat, or you're untalented, or your last movie was unfunny, he'd beat your ass. He'd punch you right in the face, right?
You wouldn't wait as long as actor. You wouldn't wait a second. If someone's following the camera, you go, excuse me, what are you doing? I'm following you. You go, you go, get the hell away from me now. I'm going to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are. Get away from me.
Yeah.
And the guy keeps following you. And you go, that's it. Or you get in a cab and drive away, or
But what strikes me is it's
or you ignore them. But when they're insulting, the teams, that's their instructions. They tell these camera guys, go find someone and just provoke them till they finally see them. That's your job. And Harvey Levin is I don't give a crap about him. He's a piece of crap. He's the worst kind of person ever. And sadly, he's Jewish, and he doesn't act it because that's not the religion. You're supposed to try to do the right thing. He just does the wrong thing. It'd be like if you had a fight with your kid or your girlfriend and you were mad, and then you left a message, and then he put that on the air, and you go, what are you doing?
Like the Alec Baldwin tape?
Yeah. Alec, that's nobody's business. That's between him and his kid. And it's public now. He goes, yeah, I apologize to my kid the next day. I lost my temper. It was bad. But anybody that knew the whole circumstances would go, oh,
John,
he finally got mad, but it's nobody's business. That's the other thing.
Why don't you and some
his
celebrities...
relationship with his daughter is absolutely nobody's business. We shouldn't know about that. That has nothing to do with
John, why
anything.
don't you and some celebrities pool some money together and hire private investigators and people to just follow Harvey Levin around and dig up all his dirt?
I was going to do that.
He should. He probably wouldn't like that. Listen, all right.
I said I'll get some guy. I told some guy, let's follow him around. I'll put it to you this way. There's a restaurant in Los Angeles, and and I would eat there all, because it was a good food. And then he goes, and then he would say, "Oh, these people go there because we're gonna be there." It's like, no, I'm not going there because of you. I'm going there because of the food. It's a fun place. And then people like you show up there because that's where people are going. You go to a popular restaurant in your town, you hear about it, you go, "Oh, the food's great. It's really fun. You got to eat there." Okay, and then there they are asking you the dumbest questions. So I always turn it around for them, and they'll go, "What do you think of da 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 da?" And I'm like, "Well, I think," and I go, "Oh my God, did you just fart? Like, what is wrong with you? You can't control your." And the camera guys get really mad. It's very funny.
Jon Lovitz.
But anyway, yeah, Harvey. I'll just tell you,
yes.
He knew. I said to the manager, he's here at this restaurant. I go, "Listen, if I see him here, do I have your permission to take a pitcher of water and dump it on his head?" And the manager goes, "Yes." And I won't get in trouble. He goes, "Nope." I mean, nobody, he's just a bad person.
People don't like the guy.
Well, he's a bad person. How can you like someone like that?
Jon Lovitz will be at Hilarities tonight at 8 o'clock, tomorrow 7:30 and 10, and Saturday at 7 and 9:30. What's the website for your the Jon Lovitz Comedy Club.com is your website.
That's
address.
the Comedy Club, and then the Comedy Network is Jon Lovitz Comedy Network.
And for tickets for his show,
dig up all the crap.
For tickets for the show at Hilarities, call this number 216-241-7425. That's 216-241-7425. John, I appreciate you coming in. It's always good having you here. And have fun while you're in town.
Thank you.
Stay out of trouble. All right, I have to take a quick break. We will be right back on Rover's Morning Glory. Hang on.
Rover's Morning Glory.